Welcome to Making a Band 101, my comprehensive guide to getting your musical project from your head and your plans to on the stage and in your community. This podcast is designed for individuals and groups that are either new to musical performance or re-energizing their project. All 7 episodes are chock full of industry tips, tricks, and secrets, and will give you the knowledge and the confidence to create success in a robust musical portfolio. I'm Drew Jones, and I can't wait to get you in my head and give you all the essential knowledge I've obtained in a 20-plus year music career with thousands of onstage hours and a performance portfolio. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'll never forget 2020 when the pandemic happened and the restrictions came into full effect. Those of us who are active as performing artists would remember that life got pretty difficult and the opportunities were few and far between. My band evaluated what this situation was going to look like in terms of how long these restrictions were going to be, how is it going to affect the venues, how is it going to affect our portfolio, and we decided to get right back to basics. Getting back to basics for us was evaluating what is 1 or 2 venues that we have really enjoyed playing, where we know we have a strong draw, where we have synergy with the owner or the booking agent and the staff, and where can we really lock in during this season where things are quite ambiguous and we want to give some consistency and land where we know we can give a solid performance and retain our community and our following. Over the years, we had really locked in with a venue that was owned by a local musician, and he was an entrepreneur, and we had a lot of synergy playing there, and the staff loved us, and we decided let's go all in on this venue for the next year or 2. We knew that other opportunities around recording and some video stuff and some streaming stuff would pop up because that's kind of what became the norm in terms of creativity during that time. And so, we were in the studio and doing lots of other things, but we decided that when it was appropriate for us to be gigging, we wanted to lock into this venue. And in the midst of all the weird restrictions and how that all evolved, that actually turned into us playing at this venue once a month. And during our monthly performances, because we had such a great, following at the time, leading up to the pandemic, and people really looking to get out and do something, people suffering with things like depression and just the nuances of that season, we gave people a consistent and great opportunity to come hang out with us once a month and enjoy some music, and we filled that room. So there was times where it was full capacity, there was times where it was half capacity, and just how all that was happening. But because we were there and because people knew, hey, the Frontiers are going to be here, it was usually the last, I think, Saturday of the month. People just came and rocked out with us, and it was a wonderful thing. At the end of that season, we knew that we were one of 2 bands that were constantly filling that venue on our monthly residency, and it was really special. So what could have been a horrible season of ambiguity and really struggle, we decided, hey, get right back to basics, lock in with one major venue, and let's go. Let's give a killer show, and let's really reinforce the fact that our community can come here and that people can enjoy a good time with us in the midst of all the chaos. Much of what we experienced there during that season was the fruit of our labor, which was being involved in the community. And this is my first major point on this episode, is that a prerequisite to enjoying a stage and creating a show in a venue is becoming a part of that community. You could do this individually, or you could do this collectively as band members all showing up together, but it's about supporting the venue, it's about going to see other bands, it's about enjoying the food and the beverage, it's about shaking hands with the owner, getting to know the booking people, and really fostering a sense of feeling valued there, and creating a bit of a network and having the ability to create trust and just fit in and to learn, how do I become a part of this community, how do I support this, and support and grow your band presence in that space as people contributing on the day-to-day activities that could happen. When I was most active in the scene, this was happening roughly, maybe weekly, maybe every other week. These days it's like once a month I'll find time to go and visit a venue that I love and shoot the shit with the owners and just say hi to people that are there regularly, some of the regulars and some of the regular band people that are either jamming or hanging out. And so it doesn't have to be a huge burden. You can really enjoy creating a network and creating some community in 1 or 2 areas. And I do believe this is a prerequisite. I believe that being a part of the community will only help ensure that your stake in that venue and your time spent promoting and marketing yourself and creating a reputation will be very meaningful. Another prerequisite to understanding a portfolio in a city as per what the venues provide and how you might fit into them is to literally shop around. So it's nice to visit places, go see shows, understand like who's who in the zoo, how's this all working. Again, if we're brand new to this, we really need to visit and to see and to attend shows and just try to get the vibe, try to get an understanding of what's the type of general genre that might play here, if it's a mixed bag. When do they prefer these types of shows, when do they prefer those types of shows. It's uncommon that there is a truly like multi-genre venue, in my opinion. What I've seen, at least in most big cities, most bigger centers, is that the certain venues sort of lean towards a certain genre of music, and that might be solely because of preference, or that might be solely because of like the types of general patrons that might show up there and people enjoying the music. I've seen in smaller towns you'll get like a multi-genre situation just because that's all you got. So people are throwing all types of shows, how many days of programming of music there might be it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever. You might see a total mixed bag. But when we get into a bigger gigging portfolio, you start to see that venues sort of fit into a certain genre and try to stay in that lane, or will do that for a weekend or longer at a time. And so as you're getting around and trying to understand where do we want to play, where's our good fit going to be, this is what you want to evaluate and try to understand. First and foremost is what type of bands are they usually booking here, and do we fit into that? Part of this process too, what you'll learn is that there's certain temperaments and certain mentalities held by people at venues, and that could be everyone from the owner to the guy doing the bookings to the sound people, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll learn that your band's mentality and temperament will match better with certain venues. And we want to avoid getting in a situation where it feels slimy, or where we're kind of uncomfortable with the way that the conversations are going, or the things around the stage experience that kind of hinder a good vibe. So after playing a venue 2 or 3 times, you might start to better understand these nuances as the conversations around everything logistically just kind of rub you the wrong way, or you feel like you don't have the freedom you want, or they're hyper concerned about the money or whatever, right? So that does change from venue to venue in my experience. And where we landed in the early days of our experience was working with usually like independent venues that were ran by entrepreneurs that really came out of the music scene, people who were professional musicians who either started a venue or professional booking people or whatnot, that really understood the nuances of why music happens and how does it support a town or a city's portfolio of the arts and whatnot. And on the other hand, you sometimes run into venues where it's totally profit driven, where you have a management team that doesn't necessarily understand the music scene. And so, or they're just throwing parties and the band is just kind of part of that equation. And those can be good too, but sometimes because they don't understand the nuances of how things are going or the heart or the vibe behind it, that you start to hit a wall in certain ways. And you're like, listen, man, a few good shows there, we're happy, but at the end of the day, we're good to kind of move on from here and explore other opportunities with more like-minded and like-hearted individuals. This brings me to my next point, which is no matter what happens around your conversations and your dealings with booking at venues, is that never burn your bridges. There will come a time where somebody hustles you for money, or things seem a little off due to the size of the crowd or other strings attached. And it's really important to keep a cool head around this. People turn over at venues. So, what might be bad one time might turn over in a year, and some of the bartenders or some of the staff remembered that y'all did a great job and that you were composed and that you handled things really well, and they might bring you back into a way better context. So I wouldn't ever really complain too much or get really bent out of shape around the nuances as they become more difficult. I would simply just pull out and look to win in other environments. Usually leading up to this point, it's a slippery slope of just kind of difficult moments that keep happening. And so you should be prepared when that starts to happen to learn, okay, what's the extra strategy? How do we cut ties here without, causing an issue? Your reputation's kind of up for grabs at that point. And so you want to exit with a cool head and understanding that there could be longevity here in a different context down the road. You might find that there are bars and restaurants or event spaces that don't regularly do music, but you've got a great rapport or relationship with the owner, and they're willing to let you throw pop-up shows. This is something my group has benefited from significantly over the years. We have 1 or 2 bars in our city that don't do regular music, but they have great spaces. We bring a full rig in. We book 4 or 5 bands. We usually do this for things like Halloween, Christmas gigs, where we pick a spot where regularly music doesn't happen, but we love the environment, we love the culture, we love the owners, and we go in and throw huge shows. So, because they don't do music regularly, you're not going to be able to pull this out once a month. If you do, good for you. If there's, a gig to be created there and there's going to be a return clientele and all your friends show up because it's special and kind of unique, that's awesome. But usually I've experienced this at a seasonal level, and this is something I would encourage every band to explore. Don't just put yourself in a box of like what would be coined as a live music venue. Find breweries that might want to throw summer parties on patios. Find, really cool bars that have a space where you could fill it with a room full of people, all your buds show up. If you have a buddy whose dad owns a restaurant or something, discover options, discover how you can be creative and really find a new and unique way to throw a killer show. And of course, the next idea is considering touring or leaving your city to play in the cities around where you live versus playing in town. Up here in Canada, we don't have a lot of great towns all over the provinces that host music. So generally speaking, if you're in a major city in Canada, you kind of stick to that center and maybe 2 or 3 hours around it. So out where I live in Calgary, Alberta, what's super popular is all the tiny little mountain towns that have ski hills. They host live music at various bars. And so we've always had this saying where it was like, cut your teeth in the big city, but go party in the small towns. Calgary is a fairly white-collared city. A lot of wealth is here, and we learned that over the years, a lot of the wealth leaves the city. People have cabins, people go camping. There's a huge outdoor culture here because of the mountains and Banff and Lake Louise and these beautiful world-class locations. So it's part of our culture that a lot of the people who have money don't spend it in the city all the time. They'll actually leave the city in the winters to go skiing, in the summer to just go camping and enjoy what's happening. And they party in these small towns. And so a lot of these places book bands. And we used to do 3, 4, 5 days in a row doing little micro tours. We really enjoyed those experiences, and that's actually one of the ways we got such a killer reputation and people really got to know the name of our band in the early days. That could be what your situation is depending on where you live in the world and how you're navigating where the opportunities lie. And you might have 4 or 5 good spots in your city that you can potentially play. Maybe there's only one, so you're like, hey boys, we got to go. But we know there's 5 or 6 towns that are a couple hours away that we can hit in every direction. And so it's the same idea. Just take this whole concept of sort of evaluating where it's good, evaluating where you really land and where the crowds naturally loved you and where you're like-minded with the staff, and keep that going. And if it turns into a seasonal booking, or if it turns into creating multiple little bookings in a row to do these little micro tours, that's awesome. You can go all in to find a booking agent or find some sort of manager who's going to book a tour for you. And if that's what you really want to do and you want to live that moment, I'd say go for it. But you can actually try that out yourselves, or you can get connected with people in your network that may have done all the little towns in your area, and you can start to feel out what it would be like to tour by doing little micro tours. And if you listen to episode 1 of this podcast series, you would then learn that, okay, we're going to learn the nuances of, do we tour well? What's working, what's not working? And all the different challenges that might come with that, or if there's no challenges and it's just amazing, it's like bliss. You're honeymooning out there, you're just rocking out. Then okay, we got a hook here. We got to extend this past our local environment. And again, using the ripple effect kind of analogy, it's like, hey, we dropped this rock in the lake, we're going to ripple out to other parts of the community, and I think we got something here, boys. So let's go. Let's take the adventure. Let's to infinity and beyond. Let's take the adventure somewhere really wild and really get past our local environment. In recent history, at least where I'm right now, touring is less popular. People are really sort of touring their city and finding where the hook is in their town and how often they should be playing in their city, and and how often at each venue. So learning that frequency for your group, learning how your draw works, learning how these opportunities manifest. I'm considering doing a podcast later about touring, so stay tuned for that. But I don't want to talk too much about that because really this is about the venues and how we evaluate them. And it's basically everything I said in the earlier part of this episode. It's, start that evaluation process, learn through your network where is good, and discover if you guys have a fit. And I really encourage younger bands or startup bands or people who are entering the scene again in some sort of new context to find 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bands that you have a lot of synergy with, that you have a similar sound to potentially, but just enough variation that you can build a gig together and you can be booking at venues together. And so, Jane from this band goes and finds a gig, and she invites the 3 other bands or whatever, and then next time it's Holly, she finds a killer gig from the other band, and everyone's kind of booking out that way. So it's a great way to kind of create a network. It's a great way to ensure that when you are booking a show, and if they give you the freedom to bring in bands, that you bring them a solid gig. On the other hand, you might be inquiring at a pretty standard music venue where the booking guy is just putting bands together and building out bills on himself. But if you ever arrive at the point where you have some freedom to have an influence there, or to invite 2 or 3 bands, really try to find out who's who in the zoo, who do we bro down with, how does this work, and who can we build killer shows with, and that product will be full, it'll be complex, the sounds will be awesome, and I think this is a great way in the early times of being a band to really stand out and make sure that without fail we're going to bring a great show to a venue. Another key thing to remember is that booking people may travel around. They might have influence in festivals, in pop-ups that happen, in other events and major sort of creative moments in your town, so be aware that, and kind of keep tabs on your booking people. I've always become friends with these people. I get to know them quite well, and eventually, you have these full circle moments where something worked really good in one environment and it kind of carries over to the next environment. Every once in a while, places that book music will host weddings and other things, and so, or corporate parties, for example, and so they might actually consider you for one of those situations, and all of a sudden you find yourself contemplating or considering kind of diversifying your musical flow to accommodate something that they think you'll be good at. And this is exactly how my band got into booking weddings and corporate gigs, is that guys and girls that were into bookings were throwing us opportunities based on how we had done well in the room with a show going crowd, and they thought, hey, would you consider playing this wedding? Would you consider playing this event, this corporate party, whatever? And, we had already started a little bit, learn some covers and some other things that made us a little more mainstream. But we started doing that almost entirely as an original band. And it was smaller opportunities, and so that worked. And as we grew in our portfolio, we started to diversify a little more, and we started to learn that our hook was in this popular musical environment, playing for massive crowds and big event spaces. And that's where we started to create a duality of our music portfolio, so we could, on one hand, deliver a killer show of all of our originals and really perform. On the other hand, we could deliver a killer show of our covers and originals in a massive space and start playing for the greater community. It's also important to understand that, much like the people that book at various venues, that the venue itself, or the restaurant, the bar, the brewery, whatever this place is, the event space, the company, whatever it is, there's going to be ebbs and flows always. And it's important that, we're aiming for as much longevity as possible with these bookings, but knowing that in 2 to 3 years, that might change. In a year, it might change. A recession might hit your area and no one's booking anymore because cost of living is weird, and the margins are all going to just regular profits in the venue, and they cut the live music portfolio or whatever. This is super common. So you'll talk to the old dogs and they'll tell you how you rode that wave for 2 years and then the wave completely went away. It's okay, fair enough, but that's the idea. We want to get on a wave. We want to ride it. We want to stay optimistic. We want to put our best foot forward. We want to make sure that we're trying our best in every environment, that we're communicating professionally, lots of customer service, answer emails quickly, deliver what they need as per have your stage plot ready, have your rider ready if you have that, have all the gear that you might need for your on-stage needs, aka cables, microphones, whatever. Don't lean entirely on the venue for everything, and if you have to, inquire what they have. I'm actually going to do an episode of what should be in your gigging bag, so listen to that, because every artist needs to have very specific things in their gigging bag. It's you shouldn't be hitting venues unless you have this ready to go. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we're sharing the responsibility with the venue really well, and just trying at every situation to create as much longevity as possible. And that collaboration and that partnership with the venues will create a lot of trust. You'll have a great reputation. Even if something flops, they'll be like, man, I see that you guys really tried. This is cool. And we love your music. Too bad more people didn't show up, or whatever, right? So, that's kind of the main thing, is just stay stay knowing that most things change in 2 to 3 years, and there's always nuances around that you'll learn about. And so we need to set our mentality that way, and realizing that we need to set ourselves up for success within that context. So let's talk about some practicalities now. So Drew, how often should I be playing in a venue? And I would say fundamentally start at one show a month. I think that's a great way to ensure you have a draw, to make sure that you can kind of set up some sort of program, be it, a new song, an EP release, a single release, a full-on album release, a new band playing with you, whatever it is, right? And I talked about this in one of the earlier episodes, where we sort of want to create hype around what we're doing. The hype could be that you're in this new venue anyways, and that's usually what it is with a new band. So you're going to do your CD release show, and that's just a demo, or it's a really decent EP that you did, and here we arrived on the scene. And then you carry that forward by booking the next year once a month at as many venues, or hosting these pop-up shows at breweries or whatever is possible. You could go seasonally as well. I see that works pretty well with some creative acts that they're doing 4, 5, maybe 6 shows max a year, and it all started this wave with this CD release party, and then they're recording another single in the midst of all that. So then another single comes out halfway through the year, and they're kind of showcasing their journey through these venues, and there is some hype there. So you're going to get into duality of the people who are following, and then the regular crowd that's loving it, and this wave starts to form around what they're doing. My band will play locally up to 15 gigs a month. But that's because some of them are private. Most of them are private. We tried to keep draw-dependent gigs around a monthly situation. Meanwhile, we have residencies at 3 venues right now, and sometimes in the summers that gets up to like 5 venues. So residencies for us are huge synergy with the venue we're playing. There's almost a natural draw there, and we've learned people come to see us specifically in that venue. They don't necessarily follow us around. So our gigging portfolio is really robust, and it's quite special. That's kind of a goal you could have. If you've just heard me say this, you're like, oh my God, Drew, that's rad. I want that. Yeah, you got to work for that. You got to build up your networking. You got to really start hustling and finding other multiple environments to be able to share your music in. But we still try to keep our draw dependent shows to once a month, and we know what those are, and those are the ones we're heavily promoting on the socials and on our website and whatnot. The residencies, the corporate or private stuff, weddings, whatever it is, these events and whatnot, we don't necessarily need to promote that because we know people are showing up naturally. So we want to promote our draw dependent gig, and if we're selling tickets or whatever, we're going all in on that. That being said, we also play a lot of like public events. We're talking like markets, kind of festival type situations that happen, pop-up things at bars and venues and breweries is pretty common. So those we don't market either. You can kind of, you might be one of multiple bands, and there's just kind of the general public showing up because it's like a block party or something, it's like a holiday event or whatever. So you can book as many of those as you want. And again, you can highlight all those things on the socials, but I wouldn't be promoting them for people to show up to. Get people to show up to your performance gigs. Keep that portfolio going. You don't want to turn into this like soulless, event or corporate or wedding band. We've seen those guys, we've heard those stories, and they're all kind of burnt out and jaded. It's like, yeah, because you didn't retain the special quality of what your band is, which is write some original music, get in venues where you need to perform, where you need to create a network, always discover new acts to work with, pair up with other artistic, acts, as it could be anything from, again, drag to burlesque to dancers, light shows, whatever. So have fun with it. Keep the energy alive, keep the creative moments of what the performance is alive by kind of diversifying a little bit. Bring a feature artist. This is how we added new sounds to our band. This is how we got, our fiddle player, mandolin player, saxophone player. We just started to diversify a little bit, and those members changed over the years and the sound changed, but you look back at it and you're like, man, for those 2 years that guy was in the band, that was amazing. We had a banjo player for like 3 years, so much fun, and that was a unique time in history for our group, and that's so you can look back and really cherish those moments. I'm going to do an episode on customer service and a little bit more around the logistics of how you should operate as a band. And so some of these ideas will reappear in that episode, but the concept I want to end with today is sort of timeliness of your replies. So not only have I enjoyed booking on behalf of my project, but I've been booking at venues, and I work at multiple venues at any given time for years. And really the thing at the end of the day that 9 times out of 10 kind of puts one band over the next is that they replied quickly, or at least timely, and kind of exactly. So I've always kept the email to our band as my personal email. I'm going to talk about this in future lessons and episodes, but you could have like a band email, but make sure you can see those notifications as they come up on your phone or whatever, or check it daily or every other day. But if you're kind of prone to losing track of that email, then fundamentally have it your own email. It doesn't matter. We don't need to be branded by our email, I don't think. What helps, I suppose, in the long run is that you have a band email. You can pass it off to a manager, a booking agent, or whatever, and they can start help managing things for you. But if you're going to be doing this thing on your own, just make it your own email and just go for it. And so when that thing pops up, you flag it, you answer it later on in the day or whatever. You touch base with the boys, copy paste the message into the group thread. Hey guys, this is the opportunity. What do we think? Yeah, I think we could do that. Okay. So you're replying with a bit of a calculated response, and fundamentally that, okay, we're available, we're willing to do this, this is great, and let's go for it. So if your band culture is that you've kind of set this pretty standard precedence for taking on gigs, and it's just about checking availability, you can lead with a quick email saying, hey, thanks Julie, we saw your email come in about this booking opportunity, thanks so much for checking us out and looking into that. I'm checking with the band right now for availability. Please pencil us in. We're really interested in having this gig. Here's a little bit more about, to answer your questions. Here we go. Here's the price point. Here's our stage plot, yada, yada, yada. But you've already got the ball rolling on confirming that gig. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy can't make it. And you're like, okay, can Jimmy sub out? Sure. But now all of a sudden, Freddie can't make it. So you're like, damn it. And you reply to Julie, hey, we have member conflicts right now and we're busy. But I'd love to rebook into the future. But, that will turn into a future booking as well. If they're already interested in you and they're seeing that you reply quickly and you've kind of got your shit together, they're more prone to coming back even if you can't take the gig. Or if there's another band that they're considering and that one landed, and so they're like, hey, we're going to lean this way first. But almost 99 times out of 100, I found that if someone's inquiring with us, or if we have inquired and we're getting, a good conversation going, that it's going to lead to a booking eventually. And all the details attached of timeliness and responsibility and trust start to build up with a venue. And that's kind of what you want. And that's going to create longevity. And especially if you come in and you kill it, or you put your best foot forward and you bring a killer performance, you just do your best. They're gonna reciprocate. They're gonna really appreciate that. In all my sessions of coaching bands, this is usually the first point of discovery. How do we get more bookings? How do we break into the scene? And 9 times out of 10, it's just with your venue relations. It's how you're approaching your emails. It's how you're putting your package of what your band's about together. And it's how you're representing yourself. It's kind of how you're selling yourself. And a lot of my artist friends who were questioning these moments, they didn't come with that salesmanship, so to speak. I've often coached bands, here's how you write an email. Here's how we design your package. Here's we line out the different assets you have, be it links to YouTube, your website, all the rest of it. If you got none of that going on, well, we need to get to work and we need to start creating those for you. So these are all services I provide at my artist mentorship, which can be found at www.thefrontiersteam.ca. And if you're interested, it's 1, 2, or 3 sessions where we dive deep around all the processes for your band. And though we might do this online, we can still evaluate venues in your area, find contacts, set up some standard emailing, and coach you right through all these processes. Do it together. What was the result? Follow up. A booking is going to happen. Okay, well, let's get together in a month. Next session in a month. Let's see how all that went down. Let's reflect on that together, and let's set you up for success. So that's www.thefrontiersteam.ca, and click on that apply button there, and we'll see you also in the next episode. Looking forward to continuing this relationship in whatever way makes sense for you.